Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire is my favorite series of all time, so I thought it would be fun to make a bunch of custom minifigs based on the show and the books. We're also going to be making a custom minifig scale Iron Throne that I am so excited to show you. And we'll be taking a look at a custom set based on Euron Greyjoy's ship, the Silence, that was sent to me from Lesdiy, but more on them a little later in the video. We've got around 20 different characters to go over, so let's get started. To begin, I think we should make Jon Snow and some Night's Watchmen. For Jon, we'll take the legs from the Mouth of Sauron. You'll notice that we're going to be using a lot of Lord of the Rings parts in this video. They naturally just work pretty well for Game of Thrones characters. And for his torso, I'm going to be using a Kylo Ren one that came in a really cheap duel set that you probably already have. If you don't have any Kylo Ren figs, then a Darth Maul torso would work fine here. Now for his head, I've went with this one. It's not exactly right, but if you have this head from the Hobbit sets, it's basically perfect for Jon. It's not super expensive to order, so if you're looking to make a Jon Snow custom, I'd highly recommend you get this one. You can find it just by searching for Bard the Bowman on Bricklink. I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out, but he is missing one important thing: Ghost. Thankfully, there's already a perfect Lego animal that you can use for direwolves. The wargs from the Lord of the Rings sets are a great option for custom direwolves. They come in gray, brown, and importantly for us, the white one even has red albino eyes that Ghost has. I think they look so great next to each other. So now that Jon and Ghost are done, let's now make some members of the Night's Watch. For these guys, we're just going to take some legs with some more basic robe prints. These ones are from Anakin and a Kylo Ren figure, and we'll add the back prints from an old Red Dragon Knight torso to them. These are great as the back prints look super similar to the armor that we see the Night's Watch wear in the show. I gave this guy some gloves and a bow, and the other one just has a regular sword. Each of them will get a black cloak and some angry looking faces. This medieval hood in black is a perfect fit for the Night's Watch, but I only have one of them, so the other guy will just have a regular hairpiece. I just love how these two look, and it has got me really wanting to make a Night's Watch army and a Castle Black mock. But I already have way too many other mock projects going on right now, so that will have to wait. You could easily add in even more variation into the Night's Watch by using some different black torsos and mixing and matching different parts together. But for now, I am really happy with how these two look. Okay, so moving on, let's head south to King's Landing, where we'll be making a couple of the Lannisters. Tywin is such a memorable character, and Charles Dance's performance in the early seasons of the show left a huge impact on me. So let's make him next. I'll take the legs from an elf and the torso from one of the dwarves from the Hobbit sets. This combination works surprisingly well, and I think it's very fitting for Tywin. There's one head that I think looks great for Tywin, and that's the Count Dooku or the Saruman head. He just has that stern face that looks pretty similar to Charles Dance in my opinion. Of course this head is double-sided, so the bald look is kind of ruined, but we'll just look at him from the front. You could throw on a hairpiece, but it doesn't look as good. I prefer it when he's bald. Moving on, let's make his two sons, Jaime and Tyrion. For Jaime, I used the Conquistador collectible minifigure as the base and added a smirking face along with the classic blonde Prince Charming hair that he had in the first season of the show. I'm also going to give him a long sword and this lion shield that looks very close to the Lannister sigil. For Tyrion, I'm obviously going to be using some short legs, and I'll also add this dark red torso to him. So I had a really hard time finding a face print that works for him. I decided on basing him off of his earlier season appearances with the clean shave and the shaggy hair. I just didn't have a good face that matched any of his show appearances, and I definitely didn't have any that matched his book appearance, so this is the one I went with. But I think once we've given him the goblet, he's very recognizable as himself. I am super pleased with how these three turned out, but some improvements could definitely be made. If you have any ideas on how to make these three look better, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Now I'd like to make some characters from Robert's Rebellion. This is one of my personal favorite eras in A Song of Ice and Fire, so I think we should make the two heads of the war, Robert and Rhaegar. We'll begin with Rhaegar. My favorite depiction of Rhaegar comes from the illustrated book A World of Ice and Fire. I think this art piece captures Rhaegar's personality perfectly. So with this reference in mind, I've decided to use chainmail legs with a decorated red dragon torso. You could totally swap the red arms out for metallic ones, but I personally like that additional pop of red on the fig. Adding onto this will give him a piece of spiked shoulder armor and a cape, but I'm going to fold the cape in half to make it look a bit more like a shoulder cloak in the image. We can then line it up to match the reference image, and it will be held down in place by a long white hairpiece. I just love how this looks, and the face print gives him that kind of morose expression. We'll also give him a sword and shield to face Robert down at the trident. The Sword of Gryffindor would have been really nice here to represent the family Valyrian steel sword Blackfire, but I don't have it, so it is what it is. This is easily one of my favorite custom figs I've made in a really long time. But now we need to make the Demon of the Trident. Robert is honestly way trickier than I thought he would have been to make. Now you can make an older king version of Bobby B really easily, like this. But for a younger Battle at the Trident version of Robert, it gets a little tricky. To start, I'm going to take the legs from the Vampire Knight CMF and I'll add the Tournament Knight body to it. This gives us a nice base for some Stormlander armor. It has the right colors and I think it works great for an armored version of any Baratheon character. I'm going to give him some shoulder armor to help give him that tall stature that he's known for and a yellow cape. The head and hair. This is where it gets really difficult. I have 3 heads here that I think work for him, but none of them are perfect. Let me explain. This one is kind of plain looking and the print is ever so slightly downshifted, making it kind of weird looking, but it does work decent for a younger version of Robert. However, it doesn't have that rage in the eyes that Robert would have had in this battle. Now this head here does have that rageful expression, but looks too old with the forehead wrinkles and the crow's feet around the eyes. This is the one that I'd recommend you use if you want to make a old version of Robert. The last head I have here is the one that I ended up going with. It has a nice amount of detail which I like, and it looks fairly young, but it doesn't have that angry expression that I was really looking for. But it is the best option that I have available. There's actually a rumor that the upcoming Dungeons & Dragons theme will have a character with an antler helmet, so I am super excited to see if that will work out for a custom Baratheon. But for now, he just has a short black hairpiece. Robert would be nothing without his warhammer, so I've given him this brick-built one that I made. Perfect for crushing in Rhaegar's chest with. So now that these two are done, I think it's fitting for us to build an Iron Throne for them to fight over. I won't lie, I was very intimidated to build a minifig scale Iron Throne. I have a limited parts collection and very little mock building experience, so with all that being said, this is what I came up with. The main inner structure is made up of these 1x1 snot bricks that I've attached clips to hold the swords with. I wanted to use the newer sword mold as it has the most detail out of all of the options available. The main challenge though is getting the back of the throne's shape right. I think I did a decent job here, but it would have been a lot easier at a slightly larger scale, but I think it looks pretty good nonetheless. I am of course trying to replicate the look of the throne from the show. Doing a book accurate one is a little out of my wheelhouse, and I don't think I even have enough swords to pull that off. I think the throne looks pretty good from the front and okay from the sides, but the back is just atrocious looking. You can of course fit minifigs onto the throne, though characters with a hard cape will have to have them removed first. I'm fairly happy with this Iron Throne that I came up with, especially for it being my first go at it, but I will definitely be revamping this sometime in the future, hopefully at a slightly larger scale because you can get a little bit more detail in like that. To get back to the figs though, I think we should head out east to Essos where we'll be building Daenerys. I'm going to base my custom Daenerys off of her look in Qarth. For this one, there is a pretty perfect dress from a, you guessed it, Lord of the Rings fig. The color match is great, and the details are pretty close to what we see in the show. As for the head, there's already one for Emilia Clarke for her character Kira in the Star Wars Solo movie, so it's going to be perfect here. As for the hair, I went with the classic long white hairpiece that you can find in the new Rivendell set. I think she turned out great, but a more accurate hairpiece with some hair coming down in the front would have looked a little bit better. Next, I'd like to make a fan favorite member of the Kingsguard, Sir Barristan the Bold. For Sir Barristan, I went with these gold armor pieces that look great for the Kingsguard outfit that we see him wear in Season 1. I've also given him a white cloak, and the head and hair combo works pretty good for him. He looks great next to the Iron Throne, and it's got me wanting to make a full set of Kingsguard figs with all of the same parts. But that would be very expensive to get all 7. Now before we take a detailed look at this insane mock of the Silence, we've got a few more figs to go over. I knew going into this video that I wanted to make a Northman soldier, but wasn't sure what parts would look right. To my surprise, I think I've come up with a really nice combination of parts. For the legs, we're going to go with these Mace Windu ones from the set from a couple years ago, and the most important part is the torso. I'm using the one from the new Gimli in Rivendell. It's just got the right details that work perfectly here in my opinion. I'm also going to give him a brown Mando cape and a regular silver helmet. Game of Thrones' costume designs were one of its strong suits. Even from the earliest seasons, it just shined in its unique looks. The Stark and Lannister armors are great examples of this. Those highly unique, almost samurai-looking helmets makes making a custom LEGO Lannister soldier really difficult to pull off. The Starks, however, had a more realistic medieval European influence to their designs, and I think it makes it a little bit easier to make them. And while this helmet is not exactly right, I think it looks pretty good for a Stark soldier. To finish off the fig, I'm going to give him a spear and a round shield that really ties the whole look together for me. Okay, now that we have a Stark House Guard, we need to make Sansa. I'm going to base this fig off of her later season's appearance with the black dress that she had. This one from an old Harry Potter set works great, and I'll just have to add a black cape to it and a head and hair combo to match. I think she turned out surprisingly nice for how simple this is. These two are probably some of my favorites that I made in this video, and were way easier to make than I would have thought going into it. If you want to make a custom Sansa, all you need is that dress from Harry Potter, an orange hairpiece, and a Rey from Star Wars head. Okay, so I have made Aegon the Conqueror and his wives, but first let me show you this little freak. I hope you can tell who this is, but if you can't, it is Mord, the man that is in charge of the sky cells in the Eyrie. You may remember him as the guy who Tyrion bribes in season 1 of the show. I've tried to go for more of a book appearance with him with the mangled looking face, and I think it looks great. For those curious, the face is from another Harry Potter minifigure of all things. Okay, and finally we have the Targaryen trio. For Aegon the Conqueror, I wanted him to have a very authoritative look, and I think I achieved that quite well in the face and the hair that he has. I am sorry to fans of the books, but I have given him the Valyrian steel dagger because this piece just looks too perfect for it. Again, if I had this sword mold, I would absolutely give it to him because it's basically perfect for Blackfire, but I don't, so it is what it is. I love how Aegon turned out, and this kind of deep red sheen on the cape looks incredible. Now for Queen Rhaenys, I went with a combination of Lord of the Rings elven parts. The skirt and torso, believe it or not, are actually from two different minifigs, but work fantastically together and look like they could have come from the same figure. Also, this black and red double-sided cape just screams Targaryen. I think it really elevated this fig. For Visenya, I wanted to go with a slightly different look. Visenya, of course, is known for being more stern and ferocious compared to Rhaenys, so I tried to capture that in her wearing armor and the more serious-looking face print that I gave her. She looks really great, but I wish this ponytail was in white instead. I think these three turned out wonderfully, and I'd love to make even more Targaryens in the future, so please let me know what you'd like to see in the comments. Or maybe even a video making book versus show depictions of popular characters. I think that could be a really fun video. Anyways, let's now take a look at this crazy massive boat that was kindly sent to me to review from Lesdiy. Now, I was sent this set for free, but all opinions on it are my own. The set was designed by Mocyourbricks and is just plain gorgeous. I'd highly recommend you go check out his YouTube channel and his website where you can buy the instructions directly if you'd prefer that. To help you kind of get more of an idea of the scale of this boat, here it is next to some large official LEGO sets. The ship comes with some nicely printed sails with Euron's modified Kraken sigil, and I think it looks awesome. The sails are a treat, but they are a magnet for any hair or dust, so you're going to want a lint roller to keep these bad boys clean. The set comes with a pretty large sticker sheet that adds in a lot, and I mean a lot, of extra detail. All of the gold prints that you see here are stickers, and so are the tentacle etchings at the front of the boat. I'm glad that they included these sticker details because they actually make a huge difference in how the set looks. Don't get me wrong, the original model by Mocyourbricks is unbelievable, but the added stickers from this set were a wonderful touch. Okay, I'd now like to briefly talk about the building experience of the set. You get numbered bags and a printed instruction manual, which I was very happy to see. The numbered bags made building the set over a couple of days way more enjoyable for me. The actual bricks themselves feel good, and the color match is super close to LEGO. The boat isn't the most fun build for the first couple of bags, but once you get into the main deck, the build becomes a lot more engaging. The little walkways are cleverly placed, and the small details actually match what we see in the show really well. Nothing mind-blowing at all, but it was a very enjoyable build nonetheless. The sails are a little tricky at first, but you get a hang of them after like the first one. So before I make a crew of minifigs for the boat and Euron himself, let me give you my final thoughts on the set. At just over $90 for 1,500 parts, the set has really great value in my opinion. It makes for a sweet display model for fans of Game of Thrones like myself, but will also please fans of medieval and fantasy boats alike. The set looks awesome on my shelf and takes up a lot of space, which may or may not be a good thing for you, but I personally love it, and would recommend it to anyone that loves Game of Thrones. As for cons of the set, I will say that these stickers are kind of strange and were more annoying to place than I would have expected, but were fine once I placed a couple of them. And like I previously mentioned, the sails are going to grab onto any dust or hair that comes anywhere near it. But other than that, I adore this model. If you're interested in buying the set, you can use my affiliate link in the description. That will help out the channel. There's also a 15% off promotion on the site right now that you can use on this model or others on Lesdiy. Or if you prefer, you can buy the instructions for the boat on Mocyourbricks' website that I'll also leave a link to below. Okay, so now let me show you the Crew of the Silence that I made. So for Euron Greyjoy, I wanted to lean more into his book appearance because, I mean, show Euron was super lame, but if you've made it this far into the video, then I feel like you already know that. Unfortunately, I could not find an eye patch face print that worked, so I went with this one that I think is a pretty good substitute. I had to make a version of his axe from the show because that was actually a really cool design and I can't deny it. I've also made a dragon binder here, which was super fun to try and design. Ideally, this would have been in black and gold parts, but I had white, so that's what I went with. For Euron's crew of tongueless mutes, I gave them a mix of parts that feel kind of piratey, but also have some Viking influence to them. I think they look really cool, but they look even better manning the deck of the Silence. Okay, and I have one little final thing I'd like to do to this set. This is the Ballista Mock by Edge of Bricks, and I'm just going to add that to the very front of the boat. It's a little finicky, but I think it looks really sick to me. And that's going to do it for me. I really hope you enjoyed this video, as it was one of my favorites that I've made in a very long time. I seriously had such a blast making all of these figs, and I hope you enjoyed them too. If you have any suggestions for another Game of Thrones video, please leave a comment letting me know. And as always, thank you so much for watching.